At 6:03 p.m., the island of Jamaica vanished from the satellite feed. For nearly 12 minutes, the GOES 19 live tracker, a system that has never once failed during a major Atlantic storm, went black. Not pixelated, not glitched. Black, as if the eye of Hurricane Melissa had swallowed the island whole. Moments earlier, global networks had been broadcasting live from Kingston. Reporters shouted over the wind, describing sheet metal roofs taking flight, palm trees twisting like wire. Then the feeds began to flicker one by one. CNN, the Weather Channel, even the local JBC radio tower fell silent. Across social media, users wrote the same 4 words before the power died. It's gone completely dark. When transmission resumed, Jamaica was unrecognizable. The lush coastline near New Hope, where Melissa made landfall as a Category 5 monster, was a wall of moving water. Meteorologists later estimated sustained winds at 185 miles per hour, gusts approaching 200. But what unsettled scientists most wasn't the intensity, it was the pattern. The hurricane's eye, originally circular, had warped into a hexagonal shape, visible in brief satellite frames recovered from before the blackout. No natural storm had ever done that. Inside the island, terrified residents had tried to reach emergency services. But the National Alert System, designed to trigger island-wide sirens and cell phone warnings, never activated. Later, government spokespeople would claim power grid failures. Yet engineers in Montego Bay insist the servers were online, waiting for the activation code that never came. By sundown, Jamaica was in total darkness. Power lines down, communication gone, only lightning revealing the silhouette of an island under siege. A journalist sheltering near Mandeville described the sound like the earth inhaling. Entire hillsides were moving. The rain wasn't falling, it was slamming sideways. Meanwhile, in Miami, analysts at the National Hurricane Center watched their instruments spin out impossible readings. Atmospheric pressure dropping faster than any Caribbean record, then stabilizing, almost as if the storm had hit a limit and been throttled back. One technician muttered the words picked up on an open mic. Someone's controlling it. The clip was buried before it could circulate. When dawn broke, Melissa was already tearing north toward Cuba, but Jamaica was missing from early radar composites, a blank scar on the map. And that's when the question began to spread faster than the storm itself. What happened during those 12 minutes of silence? A week before landfall, Hurricane Melissa was supposed to be nothing more than a tropical wave, a routine October disturbance drifting west across the Atlantic. Early models projected moderate rain, maybe tropical storm strength by the time it reached the Caribbean. But then, sometime around October 20th, the data started to behave like it had a mind of its own. Forecasters at the National Hurricane Center noticed something strange. The storm's core temperature was rising even as surrounding sea surface readings fell. Satellite imagery showed Melissa's circulation tightening with almost mechanical precision, each band of clouds folding into the next like clockwork. Rapid intensification is a known phenomenon, but this was off the charts. Within 12 hours, she had jumped from a Category 1 to a high-end Category 4, defying every predictive model in existence. In Miami, a junior meteorologist named Dana Ruiz ran a private simulation. The output made no sense. Sheer conditions should have torn Melissa apart. Instead, her model showed an external pulse of upper atmospheric energy, something amplifying wind speed from above, not below. She filed a report, flagged it as urgent anomaly, and was told to drop it. 3 hours later, her access credentials were suspended for security maintenance. Meanwhile, in Washington, an internal NOAA memo leaked to a handful of journalists. It referenced Project Aquila, a classified research program exploring ionospheric modulation for climate resilience. The memo warned that experimental frequencies in the Caribbean corridor could interact unpredictably with developing tropical systems. The document was dated October 18th, 2 days before Melissa began her inexplicable strengthening. Official spokespeople denied everything, of course. They blamed algorithmic misreads and internet fabrications. But independent storm chasers began posting raw buoy data that told another story. Water vapor patterns forming symmetrical rings around the storm's center, like sonar ripples. One NOAA contractor described it as a perfect feedback loop, an effect impossible without deliberate resonance. In Jamaica, whispers started among local meteorologists. A senior official at the Caribbean Weather Service, speaking under anonymity, said that private briefings predicted a Category 5 landfall as early as the 21st, nearly a week before the government publicly raised the alert level. "We were told to hold the line," he said. "No panic, no leaks." By October 23rd, Melissa was a swirling, perfectly formed spiral visible from orbit, a storm that seemed to feed on silence itself. And those who had tried to sound the alarm were already being silenced. The data was locked, the warnings scrubbed, and the official forecast remained minimal threat. But the truth was already written in the ocean. Melissa wasn't growing naturally. She was being engineered. By the evening of October 26th, the sky over Jamaica had turned the color of tarnished metal. The air itself felt charged, thick, restless, humming with a vibration no one could explain. Weather alerts on local TV still describe Melissa as a strong Category 3 system, likely to graze the southern coast, but the fishermen in Savannah Lamar knew better. The sea had gone silent. No gulls, no breeze, no sound except the low drone of waves retreating farther than anyone had ever seen. At 9:47 p.m., Prime Minister Andrew Holness appeared in the national broadcast. His tone was calm, almost rehearsed. "There is no cause for panic," he said. "Remain indoors and await further instructions." But behind him, eagle-eyed viewers noticed the strange reflection of a clock reading 3:18 a.m., meaning the address had been recorded hours earlier. The live message was a replay. While thousands of families clung to the Prime Minister's assurance, coastal parishes waited for evacuation orders that never came. The National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, insisted buses were en route, but local police reported no vehicles arriving. The only confirmed evacuation that night took place in Port Royal, an old naval settlement on the southeastern tip of the island. Witnesses recalled government convoys arriving unannounced, clearing entire blocks, and disappearing inland under military escort. When residents from neighboring towns asked why, they were told the move was preemptive, just precaution. Hours later, satellite imagery revealed Port Royal was directly in Melissa's projected landfall zone. Somehow, someone had known exactly where the eye would strike. By dawn, frustration boiled into fear. Radio hosts begged for updates, but official channels went dark. Then a new voice broke through the static, an unnamed air traffic controller broadcasting on emergency frequencies. His transmission lasted less than a minute before being cut. "We've been told to stand down. Evacuation clearance rescinded. They say it's containment data, not weather." Containment? Nobody understood. Within 30 minutes, the storm's outer bands hit the coast with wind speeds that shattered instruments. When survivors from Negril were later interviewed, they all described the same thing. The sky glowed faintly green, like a pulse beneath the clouds. One woman swore she heard a metallic echo, like machinery inside the storm. That night, Jamaica wasn't evacuated, it was isolated. And the decision, whoever made it, wasn't a mistake. It was intentional. By midday on October 27th, Melissa had swallowed the entire southern horizon. What had been a low gray wall at sunrise had grown into a living cathedral of cloud, spiraling towers 40,000 feet tall, pulsing with internal lightning that flashed green instead of white. From Kingston to Black River, roofs peeled off like paper lids. Then came a sound no one would ever forget. Not the wind, not thunder, but something deeper, a low-frequency hum that made window panes quiver and teeth ache. Power grids collapsed within minutes. Cell towers blinked out one after another. And for the first time in recorded history, every barometric sensor on the island failed simultaneously. Reporters huddled in basements broadcasting via satellite phones. One, from a local network in Clarendon Parish, described the moment the air itself seemed to fold. The pressure dropped so fast her ears bled, She screamed that the sky was vibrating. Her feed cut mid-sentence. That footage never aired again. By 2:41 p.m., the eye of Hurricane Melissa, a perfectly symmetrical circle 40 miles wide, was directly over central Jamaica. The sudden calm was eerie. Birds returned. Debris hung motionless in the air. Survivors stepped out into blinding sunlight, dazed, believing the worst was over. That's when pilots from the U.S. Air Force's 53rd Weather Reconnaissance Squadron, the Hurricane Hunters, sent a cryptic transmission from inside the eye. The message was short, encoded, and never meant for public release. But fragments leaked from a technician's emergency log. Signal Black 02 confirmed. Initiate lockdown protocol. Minutes later, the GOES 19 satellite feed went black worldwide. Every meteorological center on the planet, from London to Tokyo, lost access to live Caribbean imagery. It wasn't just a Jamaican blackout. It was global. When images returned 12 minutes later, the storm had shifted course. Its core energy, a dense cluster of convection patterns, had jumped 50 miles north in less than 10 minutes, defying physics. The hexagonal distortion seen earlier in infrared imagery was gone, replaced by an almost crystalline spiral. NOAA analysts couldn't explain it, but independent radar hobbyists posted frame-by-frame comparisons showing the storm's shape had snapped into alignment, as if something had forcibly recentered it. Inside Jamaica, witnesses described the eye itself behaving unnaturally. Residents of Mandeville reported a glowing column descending from the clouds, silent, shimmering, cylindrical. Others said they heard a metallic whine moments before their electronics fried. Car engines died, compasses spun. A pilot who survived the storm's core later claimed his altimeter froze mid-flight while a faint voice crackled through static. Maintain current formation. Then, as quickly as the calm had come, it vanished. The second wall slammed into the island with surgical precision. Winds accelerated from 80 miles per hour to over 190 in less than 60 seconds, a phenomenon meteorologists called instant re-intensification, something never documented before. By 6 p.m., what was left of Jamaica was chaos. Satellite relays misreported Melissa's pressure as rising, a sign the storm should have been weakening, but on the ground, it was only getting stronger. People on the western coast said it felt like the air itself was being pulled sideways. And amid the roaring destruction, an unnamed voice, believed to be a technician still transmitting from an underground NOAA bunker, sent one last line before the system failed entirely. The storm's responding to something. This isn't nature, it's command feedback. No one knows what happened to that technician. His name doesn't appear in any official roster. The transmission log was erased the following day. But one fact remains indisputable. The 12-minute blackout coincided exactly with the moment Melissa's path shifted north, and for those 12 minutes, every weather eye on Earth went blind. 2 days after Jamaica went dark, a small encrypted file began circulating in journalists' inboxes. It came from an untraceable Proton Mail account using the name Helios Observer. The subject line read only, play with headphones. Inside was a 48-second audio clip, grainy, distorted, but real enough to send chills through every newsroom that heard it. Static, a faint roar of wind. Then voices, male, American accents, mid-frequency headset chatter. Confirm atmospheric coupling, standing by for resonance test. Copy that. Drone cluster ready. Initiate in 3, 2. Then a high-pitched oscillation, not a siren, but a pulse, rhythmic and mechanical, followed by the unmistakable command. Helios Dynamics, Phase 2 active. Maintain power envelope. The clip ended in a burst of static. Within hours, metadata experts confirmed the timestamp. October 27th, 2:43 p.m., Universal Time Coordinated. The exact moment Hurricane Melissa's eye passed over Jamaica and the global satellite feed went dark. The story exploded online. Helios Dynamics, a U.S. defense energy contractor known for developing ionospheric research platforms, suddenly scrubbed its website, deleted press releases, and set its headquarters in Houston to no visitor lockdown. Publicly, the company claimed it specialized in wireless energy distribution, but insiders who'd worked there told a different story. Helios had been quietly testing a geoatmospheric resonance field, a network of stratospheric drones designed to steer weather by altering local charge density. For years, the project was rumored to be dormant, defunded after the 2023 Havana microburst incident. Now it was back in the headlines, with Jamaica in ruins. A Kingston-based journalist, Marissa Lowe, was among the first to connect the dots. While combing through backup servers at the island's meteorological office, she found a deleted folder labeled Aquila Liaison. Inside were encrypted emails between Jamaican and U.S. agencies referencing a joint field calibration event scheduled for the same week. Melissa intensified. The subject lines were clinical: frequency drift mitigation, localized resonance envelope, ground verification via Doppler return. When she tried to publish the findings, her article vanished from multiple platforms within minutes. A server error, they said, but copies spread anyway. Mirrored, archived, impossible to erase. Meanwhile, survivors on the western coast began reporting eerie phenomena that aligned disturbingly well with the Helios transmission. People described seeing 3 glowing objects hovering above the storm's eye during the brief calm. Triangular formation, silent, emitting thin columns of blue-white light. Phones and radios failed when pointed toward them. Several locals recorded the lights, but their devices short-circuited before they could upload. The few frames that survived show a shape, smooth, angular, vanishing into the clouds just as the winds roared back to life. By the next morning, social media hashtags like #HeliosStorm and #MelissaExperiment were trending worldwide. Governments issued denials. Helios Dynamics went silent, and Marissa Lowe disappeared from Kingston. Last seen boarding a cargo plane bound for Miami with a hard drive strapped beneath her jacket. Her final text, sent to a colleague moments before takeoff, contained just 6 words. "The storm was never weather, Sam." Then her signal went dead. By October 30th, the storm had moved north toward Cuba, leaving Jamaica shredded, powerless, and eerily quiet. What remained was not devastation, it was erasure. Entire neighborhoods had simply vanished, replaced by plains of silt and glassy mud. The government reported 472 confirmed dead, but drone footage suggested thousands. Still, the official numbers never changed. 2 days later, the Caribbean Emergency Response Coalition issued a joint statement claiming that the 12-minute blackout during landfall was due to unforeseen electromagnetic interference. Yet their internal correspondence, later leaked to Reuters, admitted that the interference was man-made. The signal had originated not from the storm, but from above it, a narrow band of radio energy broadcast from high altitude and bouncing off the ionosphere. While international aid poured in, journalists began noticing inconsistencies. Satellite photographs released to the public were identical across multiple outlets, pixel-for-pixel clones, down to the cloud patterns. Independent meteorologists realized the images had been rendered, not captured. When pressed, NASA's Public Affairs Office blamed compression artifacts. But a technician at the Marshall Space Flight Center, speaking under condition of anonymity, said the originals were sealed under national coordination restrictions. Then, abruptly, the conversation shifted. Overnight, major networks dropped the story. The words Helios Dynamics disappeared from headlines, replaced by bland updates about relief funds and reconstruction. News anchors who had been reporting live from Jamaica were quietly reassigned to other beats. Meanwhile, on encrypted channels, whistleblowers began to surface. One identified himself as a subcontractor from Helios, claiming the company's Caribbean drones were not decommissioned after 2023. They had been reactivated for calibration under climate stabilization directives. Another leaked document referred to a new classification, Atmospheric Behavior Modification Program, Tier 2, a BMP2. At the same time, Jamaican radio hosts noticed a surge of foreign signals blanketing local frequencies. When technicians triangulated them, the pings came from offshore, near a vessel registered to Helio's parent conglomerate. The ship's name, Aurora Sentinel. It left the region the day after landfall. Prime Minister Holness addressed the nation once more. His voice was steady, but something in his eyes gave away the strain. There was no experiment, he said. There was only weather. Then he paused, as though listening to someone just off camera, before repeating, there was only weather. In the days that followed, the phrase became a dark joke among survivors. They whispered it when power flickered or the wind shifted unnaturally. There was only weather. But those who were there, who heard the hum in the clouds and saw the lights descend, knew better. Something had been tested, and Jamaica had been the lab.